Currently, Earth. On July 5th, in 1865, in the East End of London, revivalist preacher William Booth and his wife Catherine established the Christian Mission, later known as the Salvation Army. Determined to wage war against the evils of poverty and religious indifference with military efficiency, Booth modeled his Methodist sect after the British Army, labeling uniformed ministers as officers and new members as recruits. The Christian Mission, in which women were given ranks equal with men, launched campaigns into London's most forsaken neighborhoods. Soup kitchens were the first in a long line of various projects designed to provide physical and spiritual assistance to the destitute. In the early years, many in Britain were critical of the Christian Mission and its tactics, and the members were often subjected to fines and imprisonment as breakers of the peace. In 1878, the organization was renamed the Salvation Army, and 2 years later, the first U.S. branch opened in Pennsylvania. During the Great Depression, the Salvation Army provided food and lodging for those in need, and during both World Wars, it distinguished itself through its work with the armed forces. By then, it had come to be appreciated as an important international charity organization. Today, the Salvation Army, still based in London, has branches in more than 75 countries. The Army operates evangelical centers, hospitals, emergency and disaster services, alcohol and drug rehabilitation programs, community centers, social work centers, secondhand stores, and recreation facilities. Voluntary contributions and profits from the sale of its publications fund the organization. On July 5th, in 1946, French designer Louis Réal unveils a daring two-piece swimsuit at the Piscine Molitor, a popular swimming pool in Paris. Parisian showgirl Micheline Bernardini modeled the new fashion, which Réal dubbed bikini, inspired by a news-making U.S. atomic test that took place off the Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean earlier that week. European women first began wearing two-piece bathing suits that consisted of a halter top and shorts in the 1930s, but only a sliver of the midriff was revealed and the navel was vigilantly covered. In the United States, the modest two-piece made its appearance during World War II, when wartime rationing of fabric saw the removal of the skirt panel and other superfluous material. Meanwhile, in Europe, fortified coastlines and Allied invasions curtailed beach life during the war, and swimsuit development, like everything else non-military, came to a standstill. In 1946, Western Europeans joyously greeted the first war-free summer in years. The French designers came up with fashions to match the liberated mood of the people. Two French designers, Jacques Heim and Louis Réard, developed competing prototypes of the bikini. Heim called his the Atom and advertised it as the world's smallest bathing suit. Réard's swimsuit, which was basically a bra top and two inverted triangles of cloth connected by a string, was in fact significantly smaller. Made out of a scant 30 inches of fabric, Réard promoted his creation as smaller than the world's smallest bathing suit. Réard called his creation the Bikini, named after the Bikini Atoll. In planning the debut of his swimsuit, Réard had trouble finding a professional model who would deign to wear the scandalously skimpy two-piece. So he turned to Micheline Bernardini, an exotic dancer at the Casino de Paris, who had no qualms about appearing nearly nude in public. As an allusion to the headlines that he knew his swimsuit would generate, he printed newspaper type across the suit that Bernardini modeled on July 5th at the Piscine Molitor. The bikini was a hit, especially among men, and Bernardini received some 50,000 fan letters. Before long, bold young women in bikinis were causing a sensation along the Mediterranean coast. Spain and Italy passed measures prohibiting bikinis on public beaches, but later surrendered to the changing times when the swimsuit grew into a mainstay of European beaches in the 1950s. Réard's business soared, and in advertisements, he kept the bikini mystique alive by declaring that a two-piece suit wasn't a genuine bikini unless it could be pulled through a wedding ring. In prudish America, the bikini was successfully resisted until the early 1960s, when a new emphasis on youthful liberation brought the swimsuit en masse to U.S. beaches. It was immortalized by the pop singer Brian Hyland, who sang "Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini" in 1960. Also by the teenage beach blanket movies of Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon, and by the California surfing culture celebrated by rock groups like the Beach Boys. Since then, the popularity of the bikini has only continued to grow. On July 5th, in 1975, Arthur Ashe defeats the heavily favored Jimmy Connors to become the first black man ever to win Wimbledon, the most coveted championship in tennis. Arthur Ashe began playing tennis as a boy in his hometown of Richmond, Virginia. After winning a tennis scholarship to UCLA, Ashe was taken under the wing of his tennis star Pancho Gonzalez, who recognized the young player's potential. In 1968, Ashe became the first black man to win the U.S. Open. 2 years later, he captured the Australian Open for his second Grand Slam title. Over the next 7 years, Ashe won his share of tournaments, but no more majors. Arthur Ashe was 31 years old in 1975 and seemingly well past his prime. So his advancement to the 1975 Wimbledon finals came as somewhat of a surprise to the tennis establishment. While Ashe's best finishes at Wimbledon had been losses in the semifinals in 1968 and 1969, his opponent, the brash 22-year-old Jimmy Connors, was the defending Wimbledon champion. In their 3 previous meetings, Connors had handled Ashe easily. Furthermore, Connors was coming off an impressive semifinal win against Roscoe Tanner, whose intimidating serve observers called the hardest hitting ever at Wimbledon. Though many thought he didn't have a chance, Ashe formulated a game plan for the match. Hit nothing hard, he planned to serve strongly and then give Connors nothing but jump, as Ashe himself described it. Connors won the first game of the first set, but then dropped the rest of the set in just 20 minutes, 6-1. Although Connors won just one game off Ashe in the second set, he took the third set 7-5. His confidence restored, Connors strutted around the court, while Ashe closed his eyes between sets, concentrating on the moment at hand. Finally, with the shocked crowd cheering him on, Ashe finished Connors off in the fourth set, 6-4. Ashe retired from competitive tennis in 1980 after suffering a heart attack. For his career, he won 51 tournaments. In retirement, Ashe wrote the 3-volume book, A Hard Road to Glory, first published in 1988, which detailed the struggle of black athletes in America. In 1983, after double bypass surgery, Ashe was infected with HIV during a blood transfusion. After revealing his disease to the world in 1992, he set about educating the public about HIV and AIDS. On February 6, 1993, he continued his eternity. In 1997, the U.S. Open's new home court was named Arthur Ashe Stadium. On July 5th, in 1996, Dolly the sheep, the first mammal to be successfully cloned from an adult cell, is born at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. The cells had been taken from the udder of a 6-year-old ewe and cultured in a lab using microscopic needles, and a method first used in human fertility treatments in the 1970s. After producing a number of normal eggs, scientists implanted them into surrogate ewes. 148 days later, one of them gave birth to Dolly. Over the course of her earthly existence, Dolly was mated to a male sheep named David and eventually gave birth to 4 lambs. In January of 2002, she was found to have arthritis in her hind legs, a diagnosis that raised questions about genetic abnormalities that may have been caused in the cloning process. On February 14th in 2003, at the age of 6, Dolly continued her eternity. As a tribute to Dolly for her unquantified contributions to our human race and the world, her earthly body is displayed for those of us who wish to pay homage at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. Sir Ian Wilmot is an English embryologist and the chair of the Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine at the University of Edinburgh. He is given credit as the leader of the research group that cloned the first mammal. All historic information documented on this audio file can be verified on History.com.